going on, guys? Wade here, 129 Touge, and today is a very exciting day. We are releasing our podcast series. I've got a lot of great people here with me today. Starting out with the man himself from Eurospec, Doug the Alignment Man.
What's up?
Have Austin Simons here, our fellow track instructor from Jzilla Track Days. We have our local photographer over here, Dylan. We have Mr. Couch, and he's just our Miata man. Like, everyone needs a Miata man, so he's our doable Miata man. And today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about the ultimate 200 treadwear on and off the track. More purposely on the track for safety reasons and everything like that. But we will have our experience with all different kinds of 200 treadwear tires and our future with the tire itself. So,
man, I'll be honest with you. Like, I've mounted up just about everything you can imagine as far as 200 treadwears, 280s, 500s, whatever. Yeehaw mud trains, doesn't matter. The 71R is just a... Whether it be the R, the RS, even the R11 back in the day, it was still just like, why is it always higher than everything else?
Pinnacle.
Why is it always that way?
The 71R, in my opinion, before we got the RSs, which we're going to use for a benchmark tire, since the RS is just a complete god tire. And we're going to rate these tires in different ways, too. We're going to have 4 ratings for them. And that's going to be dry performance, wet performance, steering feedback, and just driver comfortability with it.
What are you thinking, like 1 out of 10? Or
the rating is going to be 10. So
okay.
Let's say if we get up to... let's start with this one right off the bat. Let's go to an NTO5. Okay, all you Walmart...
Emphasis on hard.
Yes.
Yeah. Emphasis on hard.
1 out of 10, all the way through, maybe except for comfort. And
so
that
one
might
being
be
the
a
worst,
2.
I'm assuming. One being
Yes,
the worst.
1 being the worst,
Okay.
10 being the greatest.
Okay.
But we're going to use the new RS as the benchmark for all these tires. Like, we're going to be using that to compare everything to.
I think, in my opinion, anybody who's used NTO5s, they're like, oh, I really like them.
But then they get on a better tire and they're like, these tires are not good.
It's exactly what it is.
I will say, I think probably the only good thing about an NTO5 is that it has a really good linear grip. But other than that, it really kind of falls off short everywhere else.
It's more like, I want to go fast, but I want the tire to look good. Which one am I going to buy? Gets on Walmart, buys NTO5.
R8R, baby.
R8R, yes.
Yeah. So for me, what I've noticed is the people that are running NTO5s like them because of the affordability.
Correct.
I feel like people that run the NTO5, they're pretty new to a 200. They're coming from a 300. They wanted something cheap because they don't want to go out and blow $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 on a 71 RS and be like, oh, I hate these. Oh, I can't run them as, for my daily, which a lot of us, we run 200s on our dailies, and they don't want to go blow all that money on a 200.
Right.
And the NTO5 can, because it is, obviously a really, really hard compound, it can last for forever. And so it's like the even cheaper version of an RS4. Obviously, you're not going to get the performance, but if someone is just coming into a 200 and they don't have all the track experience, and it is their daily that they go drive in the mountains or do spirited drives, it might be a good, approachable limit 200 treadwear tire before you get used to the grip of something like a 71 RS, which is just absolutely phenomenal.
My whole thing is an RS4 fills that gap perfectly, though. Because the RS4, it's very non-punishing. I mean, I've done 2 20-minute back sessions back-to-back in the middle of summer at Road Atlanta. Can't overheat the dang thing. Now, granted, it's on a Miata, but you cannot overheat an RS4.
Yeah.
Unless you're just driving the dang wheels off the dang.
Or you don't let it heat up.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is the NTO5 and the RS4 are super similar. I think the NTO5 only has affordability over the RS4. I think that's about it.
Yeah. I mean, that would be literally the only God save of it. But the RS4, I think, lasts longer than the NTO5, in my understanding. So
it lasts about the same.
Okay.
Dry performance all day over an NTO5.
Yeah.
All
Wet
day.
performance
yes.
all day. But I think the only thing is the affordability, and that's why I say for somebody that was on a 300 and they're trying to get into something like more 200 treadwear oriented, they can move towards that.
Well, the only other thing is, when talking about affordability, then you had to bring in something like the Federal 595.
You could also bring in a Falcon
Oh my God.
We just turned there.
Federal. You could also
Okay,
bring
so-
in the Falcon 615K pluses too, because I paid a little bit over $600 for this current set of 615K pluses that are on my BRZ currently, and that is my daily driver.
I actually just ordered 2 6 feet 15K pluses for the S2000, and I got a hell of it. It was 110 a piece. I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So-
Affordability with tires is super huge, especially in this category.
I'm
Especially
curious
something
as
like
to, and I've seen this with a ton of different people now, is why they're getting 615s over 660s when both exist. I don't know, because the 615 is not discontinued. So I'm wondering, on what realm do those two tires exist? Did Falcon make the same tire? Like, did they attempt to go after, okay, we're going to make a super grippy, like, dailyable 200? Or is the 615 more oriented towards the RS4 crowd, and the 660 more oriented towards, like, the grid life crowd, the RE71 RS? Like, they know what grip feels like, and they want outright grip over life of a tire. But it's interesting because you mentioned that, and I keep seeing everybody that I know that doesn't go to the track on a consistent basis. Not saying that you don't, but just everyone I know that dailies on a 200 keeps getting 615s over 660s, especially after all the tread issues that the 660s have.
Well, I think, like you said, the tread issue was a little bit, especially on the heavier cars. That being said, the 615s, they just last so much longer.
Yeah.
I mean, you said it, you nailed it right on the head with it's a direct competitor with the RS4, but the 615's been out for 4 years, something like that. And so,
See, with me though, if I was going to spend the money to do NT05s or RS4s, totally off topic from 615s, but like, what about the V730s, the Kumo X's? They're cheaper than 615K pluses. I mean, and they have about the same amount of grip as the 615 pluses. I mean, at the same time, it's like, do you want to run a Kumo? Like, when people look at the side of the car and they see Falcon, or they look at the side of the car and they see Kumo, which one do you think is going to have that cool factor?
Right.
That's the way I see it.
Falcons are cool, bro.
And you know, on
Formula
the
Drift, bro.
you do grid life, bro? Yeah, bro. What tire you got? Kumo, bro. That's not a grid life tire.
but on the topic of starting out with 200 tread-wear tires, you know, already talking about the Falcons, let's go ahead and compare the 660s, because a lot of people, especially everyone in this room, loves an RE71R.
Yes.
Rest in peace. But
Best snow tire. Best snow tire I've ever driven on.
yeah.
So before we get there, so you said you wanted to rank these kind of 1 through 10.
Correct.
Where does the NTO5 land? Like, I guess kind of like stuff with couching.
It's like, you ever seen someone get dragged out of a bar? That's the NTO5.
And they get thrown on the concrete and they hit the concrete really hard. They're actually
That's the rating.
They actually land on an NTO5.
That's how hard that compound
I
is.
hope Nitto sees this. They're like, God, I hate those guys.
I don't feel like we're getting a sponsor from Nitto anytime soon.
So Couch, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you put it? Like, have you driven on it?
I have, yeah. I don't have a lot of experience on them. The main experience I have on them is driving Wade's car when he ran them. You know, like 5 years ago.
Some backstory on
Back
that.
when we were first starting to get onto 200 treadwears.
That's my point earlier.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I said. Yeah.
Yeah. And they were just, they didn't have anything. Like no grip, no wet traction, nothing. Probably around 0.5. Maybe
A 0.5. I've never
It's
come
not even
decimal.
on the scale.
They
It's
don't
not
even
even
go
on the
there.
scale.
I'd rather have a 340 over that, honestly.
Yeah, honestly, I'd rather
So,
have
so
an
what would you
8500.
rate it?
Okay.
So I've mounted a couple sets. I've never actually used them before. I mean, the people who do run them,
Mustang guys.
It's Mustang.
It's usually Mustang.
every car
I was about to say.
Fail.
the last set I mounted up were for a Cobra kit car. So yeah, I mean, is that kind of?
But what would you rate it from your experience?
Okay, so if we were going to go out of 10, or okay,
One being the absolute, I guess 0.5 being the absolute worst.
0.5 being the worst 200 treadwear. So
Correct. Yeah,
I mean,
200.
we're not comparing these to the super hard 500 treadwears that you just put on your car.
Oh, I remember.
At least your expectations
I'd rather
are
have the
low.
shot Hankooks that I took off for the Falcons over the NTO5.
If it was me, I'd probably rate it. I'm gonna go with a 2.
The 2?
Okay.
A 2. I mean, a 71R RS is gonna be a 6. I just,
Whoa.
well,
I feel like we're going to have to
Wait a
get
minute.
Well,
Who let this guy in here?
Out of 5. Hold on. Out of 5, not out of 10. All right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Calm down. Calm
I was
down.
about to get up out of my chair.
No, it's 6. You know, it's past that 5.
Okay, so on a scale of 1 to 5.
Yeah, let's go to 5 because I think might be a little bit easier, especially with there's not like because you're able to choose.
Okay,
I
yeah.
like that we're figuring this out on the fly.
Yeah, so I would go with
That's how Nitto does it.
Yeah, a 2 out of 5. 2 out of 5 because I don't think there's
5. Okay.
I don't think a 1 or a 0 exists in a 200 treadwear world.
If we are going to
Okay.
go
I
to a
just don't.
5 scale, it's probably a hard 1.5.
Okay. What about you, Wade?
Well,
Emphasis on hard.
for me, it's going to be. I'm looking at the price aspect of it. Okay, everyone's going to go into it looking at it as like, what can I find that is extreme performance summer tire, which I think it is rated as,
Yes.
or what they describe it as. And someone's like, oh, extreme performance summertime. Let's buy it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, if you're new to the world and you want to get into driving cars, understanding track experience and everything like that, the price of the tire is great. It gives you a start. But, looking into it, if I'm going to choose a tire that's around the same price range, I'm going to go with an Indy 500, which is more tread wear.
340 tread.
Yeah.
Keep in mind.
I'm gonna go with an Apex.
Yeah, there you go.
Advan Apex, the 280 treadwears. I have them on the Type R, and I've done 3 track days with them, and I've driven to the beach 3 times. I still have tread. And
They may be heat cycled out, but
yeah, they're definitely heat cycled out. Red Atlanta killed them for me, but they still have plenty of grip. And I don't want to say bet money or anything like that, but like I have a feeling they have better grip than an NTO5 does. And
So what would you rate it with?
It would be at least. I'm going to go a little bit higher with it. I'm going to give it a 2.1 out of 5.
Ooh, so specific.
Yeah.
Do it, point.
Okay, so this
Yeah,
man gave it a
point.
2. I want to give it a 2.1.
Okay, what about you, Austin? Do you have experience on it?
So the only experiences I've had is driven friends' Mustangs.
Oh, wow.
Every
What a
one
surprise.
every NTO5 I've ever been on has been in a
on a
Mustang.
Mustang.
Yeah,
Yep.
specifically like an SN95 to like a that later generation after that. So I would solid give it a 2 just because, like I said, it's linear grip, especially after you did a pretty good burnout allegedly. Then
Allegedly.
they did hook up halfway decent, so I could maybe a 2.5, maybe 3. So maybe I'll say 2.5.
Okay, good rating. What about you?
I give it a 3.
A 3?
What?
Because of the affordability, and I think
Okay.
I think Nitto, one thing that we either aren't discussing or overlooking is Nitto does a really good job of marketing a tire that doesn't
They do.
compete. So like it can't hold up to a 52, 71 RS, a 660, but they market it extremely well. There's a reason like muscle car guys usually put them on. And when I had both of my Fiestas, when I was broke and I couldn't afford like a good 200 like I wanted to, but I still wanted to have enough grip to go out and do track days and have them last a little bit longer, like an RS4. I would pick up an NTO5 and it would actually last me a good while. It would wear evenly, and they were super predictable. Granted, this is a front wheel drive car, but they were super predictable under hard driving.
Right.
I hate how hard they are. I think they are absolute trash in comparison to a lot of the other options that we have listed, but I give it a 3 based on affordability and the merit of the tire alone.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like it's a very good like upper middle ground tire, and I feel like I'm just going to get absolutely dragged by everybody. But affordability is why I give it such a high rating. I don't think performance wise, dry performance, wet performance, any of that, I don't think it holds up. I think as an overall, it gets a 3 just based off based off of affordability.
I like that. I think that's it's not the best tire in the world, but also it gets you out there, and for driver capabilities, you get to learn about it. But we have a lot more tires to discuss on here, and we got the NTO5 out of the way. I think everyone wanted to talk about how garbage the NTO5 was.
So since we're already on the budget tire topic, I feel like we might as well just go ahead and bring out the hot boy tire that all the hot boys like to bring out, which is of course the Federal 595.
And I didn't put that on the list originally because it's just not in my marketplace. I didn't even think about it.
I think with the 615 being released and obviously getting dropped in price as the 660 came out, I feel like the people that used to buy 595s because they were cheap and affordable now buy 660s because they're the same exact price.
Yeah.
Like they are priced almost the exact same.
I already know I'm gonna get blasted, but fuck it. So, I think that the 595 isn't a better tire than the 615, but it is a faster tire than the 615. I'm gonna.
You're right. You are gonna get blasted.
I'm gonna get blasted. I'm gonna get blasted. I didn't say better. Okay, we're not gonna mix this up with better versus faster. Okay, but I
Faster
think
in what sense? Because like you put that like across a, say like a 5-minute course. Like get that 2 laps at VIR.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm simply saying if you just put, let's do one hot lap, like one time attack lap.
Call it VIR because that's a good like. That's
VIR
a good,
or even Road Atlanta, either one.
Okay.
Yeah, but I feel like the Federal's going to put down a better time. I really, really do. Because, like, don't get me wrong, the steering feels atrocious. And the life isn't that great, and they booger up, and they heat cycle out super quickly. And any other aspect, they're not good. But as far as just sheer grip for one solid lap, they're not terrible. They're really not bad.
So
they're not bad.
Who's doing one
the
lap?
one lap hero tire.
Yes.
If I could turn this car around, you'll see a little Among Us sticker that says Federal's kind of sus. And there's a reason for that.
There is, yes.
But, you know, around the range of the Federal tires, you know, same thing as the NTO5s, when it comes to affordability, people want a tire that's going to perform for the price.
Yep.
Now, how long is it going to perform?
Consistently,
Yeah.
How consistent will it be? Can you go in the 10A 3 times with that tire and be, you know what, I can brake here at 160.
And
I'll be
also
okay.
think about a lot of our friend group, the people we know, the people we drive with. A lot of people daily 200s.
Half of them are dead.
You can. You cannot. The tires. So for the amount of people we know, I would bet on people not running them because you cannot daily a Federal. That car, that tire is going to wear out. Whether it's a lightweight Miata, whether it's a Hellcat, that tire is going to disintegrate. It's going to heat cycle. It's going to chalk. It's going to fall apart.
Delaminate.
Yeah, and so
I agree.
I think for a dedicated track guy, maybe an autocross guy, that would be great. But for me, I also had them on my Fiestas and a couple of my 8.6s, and I just hated them. I dailied them, which I know like people can say whatever they want about dailying.
Hey, we all make mistakes.
Yeah, I'm on another 8.6.
So, like a quick rating for
Yep.
the Federal tire. What was it, the 595? Is that what it was?
RSRR, I think is what it's called.
Way too
Okay.
long
Start
of a
with you
name.
then for rating.
Yeah.
For me,
Yeah, you.
I'll give it a 1.5.
Wow, lower than the NTO5?
I would rather have an NTO5 than a 595.
Really?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, and they're like not too far off price, but yeah. Well, because with me, so I daily my cars on 200s, so I value the life of a tire a lot.
That's fair.
Correct.
Like I don't need a ton of grip when I'm going to Walmart.
It's not like you go through tires very often.
Yeah.
No, never.
The doctor says otherwise.
This year.
There's 4 sets of eyes looking at me saying that's a lie.
What do you think?
So I'll give it a 1.5.
1.5?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, what about you?
Austin?
I'll give it a 3. I'm going to higher than the NTO5, but not by a lot.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I don't have any experience running this tire, but I do have experience being behind a car that runs this tire.
Sean runs.
Well, not just Sean. I'm talking about
He
Luke.
doesn't.
I'm talking about Luke Patterson. Okay,
Oh,
Luke
yeah.
Patterson was running. No,
595.
he was on the Miata, the
Yeah.
MB, which was an open diff car.
Yeah.
That car would handle like it had an LSD in it because half a lap. Yeah, it's just grease. But it was cool to watch the tire, and it compared to NTO5, which what I was on at the time. And I'll rate it higher than NTO5. I'll give it a I'll give it a 3.5
Wait a minute.
out of 5.
Are you remembering when a few years ago when it was fall going into winter and he was spitting fire? Because I'm pretty sure you were on Maxxis RC1s at that point in time.
Yes.
Is that when he flipped the car?
No, he was on RC1s.
Yeah, he was
Fresh
on
set
RC1s.
RC1s.
Fresh set, unscrubbed. It was damp.
I'm going to give that tire probably the same rating as the NTO5. Probably, if not, I might give it 1.8. I mean, just a hair less. The only ones I've seen are just the hot boys that throw them on their car. But I feel as though the Federals are harder to get a hold of because you can't access them on Tire Rack. Half the time you can't at all. Remember, I have to use Tire Rack a lot.
Yeah.
And you can't access them on Tire Rack. You can't. A Discount Tire rarely ever has them. I mean, like you got to look on Amazon or eBay to find RSR.
I don't even know if Discount Tire can
I
even
didn't
order
even know that.
Federals.
I was unaware.
because
Wow, yeah, that's like
So they're kind
That
of like
immediately
trading
puts
like
off.
even
there
when I
goes the
worked at
affordability.
Discount
You can't
Tire,
afford it if you can't find it. That's
yeah,
true.
even when I worked at Discount Tire, a few years ago for those 2.5 months, we never mounted a set of Federal 595 RSRRs, and we would do 100 cars a day.
Yeah, I only mount
Minimum.
up if
So
I
you
see.
So
Okay.
what do you rate it?
I can't really give it a rating. If I had more experience with it, I would probably put it around a little bit lower than a NTO5, probably around 1.3, just because the NTO3, it's going to last longer. It's not going to grease up as bad or as often or as quick, and the NTO3 is probably not going to delaminate on you.
Fair enough.
I think that's a fair rating.
Yeah, I think that is a good rating for sure.
I'm not going to disagree with that.
Can we move away from the affordable tires?
Yeah,
Can
okay,
we-
let's-
Well, no, because I really want to talk about the 71
Yes.
RS.
We know
Alright,
that.
I'll-
Yeah,
So-
pushing it along.
You know, we were talking about the 615s being brought up,
Yeah.
and what we're going to be using to compare is the RS, right? So, if you're going back to the old days, the god days of 200 treadwear tires, I would say a 71R is by far my favorite tire.
Best tire I've ever been on.
But, you know, discontinued. We had issues. We had to adapt, and we had to adapt in an area in a year during a pandemic.
yeah,
and we had
adapted
no
to the
idea
660
Yeah,
that
we had
worked
no
how that
exactly
was
like
going to
it.
play.
Which, during that pandemic, Bridgestone did tons of testing on the 71R and the prototype RS.
Right.
So, someone that a few of us know works for Bridgestone. He's an instructor at Road Atlanta, or with Jzilla Track Days, which we've all participated in. And I was talking to him about them when I bought a set of 71Rs off of him. I was like, hey, I've heard about the 71RS, kind of what's going on. And he mentioned some things to me about them doing testing. And like you mentioned in the pandemic, I think while the 660 was gaining popularity, Bridgestone used that as a comparison, as well as like the AO52, because obviously Yokohama is so close to like Tsukuba and Suzuka and all those other tracks over in Japan, and Bridgestone was able to go over there and use those as a comparison. I'm not going to give my rating yet on the 71RS because I feel like there's more to talk about with the R. But
Yes.
I'm very ready to talk about the RS after my experience with them recently.
So with the 71R, you know, it was discontinued. We're left here like, well, obviously they need to be working on another tire, and they were. So what tire do we go with? Well, you know, Falcon released the RT660 right before everything got discontinued with Bridgestone with the RE71R. And, you know, the tire looks identical to it. So when you buy the tire, you're like, well, this is going to do the same thing that the 71R does. But does it? And that's what we're going to bring up next, the 660. Because this is going to be the competitor tire that a lot of people are buying right now. Because not only is it a price difference in
Huge.
Yeah.
the RE71RS, which is out now, but it also is a 200 treadwear. So
I've ran 3 sets of 660s at this point in the past 2 years at best.
I bet your wallet likes you a lot.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
No, he owns
So-
the officer.
I actually really like the 660. Comparing it to an RE71, I like it better. And for the sole reasoning of, yeah, I know,
Sir,
I said it.
Please, get out now.
No, I
Wow.
know, I know.
Get out.
And there's a reason for it.
Get out.
There is a main reason for it. The 71R is a solid 2-lap tire. It is. If you are driving a 10/10 lap, you get 2 laps out of that tire at full pace, and then they start greasing every time. And it could be at the tail, it could be on track, any track. It could be, you know, it could be in the middle of the winter, and you're still going to grease an RE71 in 2 or 3 laps. That being said, that, hold on a second. Let me finish my thought. So, that being said, the 660 isn't quite as grippy, but it's damn near close.
It is very close.
It is
It
damn
is
near
close.
close, and I can run it a full 20-minute session at Road Atlanta in the middle of summer and not worry about heat cycling, unless I'm overdriving the car. But at that point, it's not even the tire fault. It's me overdriving the limits of that tire.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's me full on trailing into 10A. Like, hard, you know.
Like braking at the 60 mark and
Yeah,
just
literally just
all of the trail brakes.
backing the,
Yeah.
backing it into 10A.
Getting black flagged by Reed by, hey buddy, you need to stop.
Yeah, like
doing
that. You know, like hey, this isn't Formula Drift at this point.
Yeah.
Like, you know, so
I'm upset that you're right. And like factually, I've driven on 71Rs and I've driven on 660s, and I hate that you're right. Can I start talking about the 71RS?
Bro, no.
Oh my
We're
god!
on 660.
But when I hear you talk about 660s, it's interesting because obviously I have all the thoughts on the 71RS, and it addresses like a lot of the things that make the 660 great. Bridgestone combined that with the 71R and whatever. But
we'll get there.
if we're talking on the 660 aspect of it, I despised running them. I would rather, if I was going to a track day, if I'm somebody that is like, okay, my 300s are shot, I'm getting new tires for next season, I'm going to go do 15 track days. Granted, your tires aren't going to last past like 5, but my first tire I'm going to pick, I would much rather have like an RS4 over a 660 or something like that. Just, I'm not a fan of the 660.
Why?
I don't like the... Man, I'm going to get just absolutely dragged.
Yeah.
I don't like the stiff sidewalls. I'm not a big fan of the stiff sidewalls
do have stiff
on the
sidewalls.
I agree.
Every time.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I would rather have something like an RS4, and everyone knows how Hankook's the sidewalls communicate a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
I scrub speed versus heavy braking, just like like Wade and I've talked about it a lot. And I prefer a super communicative tire versus outright grip. And I don't like the way, and now we're having these tread separation issues on 660s, which Falcon came out and addressed it. Falcon came out and addressed it, and then it's still happening to like a whole different degree now. People are having horizontal separation instead of vertical. The tires are delaminate, like all this crazy stuff. And we just had it happen to one of our friends recently, and it hasn't fit. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. I can't go fast on a tire I don't trust, and a tire that I can't communicate with. So
Understandable.
to me, they land on a 2. I'd rather have an NT05.
Ouch.
Oh, I'm getting dragged!
Oh my god.
I'm scoot over here, buddy.
Keep in mind, my number one thing that I value in a tire is life. And I would rather track an NT05.
Hold on. Just real quick. My 660s, granted, it is a Miata, a stock horsepower Miata. That being said, it has lasted me almost an entire year on one set of 660s. Now, granted, they did show cord on one and delaminate the other one. On my
This man was like, hey, can you deliver me some tires for the track and you come down? Yeah, sure, I got you, bro. But why do you need tires? My 660s are starting to cord.
Yeah, they corded one and delaminated the other.
He's like, these tires are great, but they
These tires
No. But this was after an entire season of running them. I mean, what did
Now, what does an entire season look like to you? Because other people might not know.
So for me, that was, I guess, 7 or 8 track days.
Call it miles.
A lot.
Oh, you can't put mileage.
Yeah, I was about to say, I don't know. We're talking about
Just total miles with the tire on your car. Because I know we all drive in the mountains and we do other things that push a tire.
I don't know,
Maybe more than 6,000?
Yeah, I did at least 8,000 miles, and at least
Lucky.
I did at least 8,000 miles on those tires, and at least minimum of half was on track, minimum.
So what rating would you give it out of 5?
A 660?
Mm-hmm.
I give it a solid 3.5 or a 4.
Oh,
I really do.
Okay.
Fair enough.
But
What about you, Doug? What do you think?
Honestly, like I've mounted more sets of 660s than pretty much anything else, and I think it's a lot has to do with the price point.
We were mounting 660s when we still worked at Firestone.
Yeah, true. I mean, I'm still mounting them today. Our good friend Lowe, he's running 660s on his car, and he has no complaints. I actually just rotated for him today. He loves them, and I think he's driving North Carolina today with them.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I've mounted so many up for people, and like, it's rare if I see the delamination stuff. I only see it on those people who are really, really pushing their cars. Mr. Hottest Face.
And at
It's always hot.
Same thing with you.
At that
Same
point,
thing
if
with
they're
you.
really, really pushing their car, like how Dylan does, or how our friend with the Fit has.
Our friend with the Fit is a monster.
Is an
hold on,
absolute animal.
I would argue that he just overdrives the tire.
Yeah.
He does.
That's what I'm getting at.
calling him out right now.
At that point, when you are having the delamination and separation issues that he had with those 660s, he was 100%, in my opinion, with the tire experience I have, driving on the 660s, mounting the 660s, driving on all the other tires I've drove on, he was 100% over driving the tire.
So what would you rate it? And then I want to go back to you.
The 660,
Yeah.
3.8. A
Okay.
solid 3.8.
Out of 5.
Out of 5.
Okay.
I don't have any experience on track, off track with them, unfortunately. From what I have heard, they are a little noisy, but I mean, what 200 tread wear is not noisy.
You really have to pick your battles there.
You
Pretty
guys,
much.
hear the noise over the rattles of your car?
Yeah,
Oh.
Yeah.
Miata undershift in a nutshell.
I didn't know that existed. I didn't know tires made noise. I just heard rattles.
But for the people who have ran them, other than the delamination issues that some people have, people love them. Like they're like, oh yeah, I got stickies. I'm ready to go do autocross or do, because the majority of people I do mount 66 R4 like autocross guys, because there's a local autocross down the road from where we work, where we live. The closest track to us is 3 hours. So it's like there's not enough people tracking the 660s per se. There's more people running autocross, and everybody has something good to say about them, except for the people who truly push their car to the absolute limit.
He pointed at me with all 5 fingers.
Looking at you there, buddy.
I did the boy thing.
Yeah.
But so I'm going to give it actually a 4. And that's only based upon other people's opinions, not based upon my own.
Not to get off topic, but
To get off topic.
to get off topic. little side quest here about tracks not being close to us. You know, we are in East Tennessee. You have the closest one is probably Road Atlanta or A&P.
A&P, 30 minutes closer.
Yeah, 2.5, 3 hours close. Far 2.5, 3 hours away. But not for long, because next year Flat Rock is supposed to be opening.
Supposedly, we're all hoping. We're all hoping and praying.
That is what they are shooting for their construction time frame, is sometime next year.
And then we can all take our 660s and destroy them there.
Yes.
No, yeah, then we'll really find out.
But by that time, we're all probably going to be on RSs.
I'll be honest with you. Next year, springtime, I'm torn between 2 tires, and I'll tell you the second one once we start talking about it. But my first
Listen,
choice.
you're a Bridgestone man. You've got Bridgestones on a lot of your cars. You're going to buy an RS. I'm telling you right now.
RSs are a hot pick, and because I'm no longer
going to talk about these.
It's falling out of his chair.
Let me give you my review real quick.
Yeah, I was going to say, so what do you rate?
Because I know this man.
Because it's just me and you that haven't rated the tire yet.
Okay, so this car behind us right now has had probably about 6 sets of 660s on it so far. And everything about it is, do I like them? Do I think they're like a 71R? Well, when I buy the tire, obviously I want it to have the hopes of a 71R.
It looks exactly like a 71R.
It looks, well, not right now. It's, but
they look like a slick
it's
right
been
now.
used. But, a 71R for me, especially on and off the track, understeer characteristics are one of my favorite things about a car that most people hate. I love having feedback in the steering wheel.
Speed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not only is it, like you said, strubbing speed, you can brake, but it gives you a good steering feedback on when the tire lays over with the camber that you so specifically set up, and it's amazing. But it's not, like, it strubs way more than I want it to. It gets greasy when it's not even needing to be greasy. On track, the tire feels great. Road Atlanta, hot day, close to 96 degrees. Stuff's going to get hot.
Easily 110 plus on track.
Yeah, I'm about to say actual track temp's like 110 easy.
Yeah.
That's a good torture test for any tire. And I really don't have that many issues with it up there or down there at Road Atlanta. But for me, an overall rating, I can go around Road Atlanta, have a good session, and the tire will start near an end of a 20-minute session. The tire will be okay. This is it.
This
We're
man
done.
will run out of brake pad before he runs out of tire, though.
Oh, that's a whole other podcast.
I've watched him kill a brand new set of BP40s in a day.
Yeah. But when it comes to rating this tire, I'm gonna have to give it out of 5. Okay, out of 5, I'm gonna give it a 4.
Same.
Okay, I do hate this tire.
Everyone's giving it a 4 except Austin who gave it a 3.8.
Okay, I hate this tire. I'm going to let you know. I would rather have a 71R all day long compared to this tire. But, it's what I have right now. It's what I'm doable with. So, I'm going to rate it a 4 because it still is affordable and it does what I want it to do for the most part. But
I will say the only caveat I will say, 71R is going to be better in the snow than a 660.
that's right.
It is.
Especially when you put them backwards.
So hold on.
I forgot about that.
So, I had an NB originally, and it snowed real good up in the mountains, and so I was like, well, screw it, we'll go up and be an idiot in the mountains with these tires are 2-year-old RE71s.
So they're hard.
They're hard as a brick.
Now,
Okay.
did these
It's like
sit
NTO5
outside?
right there, son.
Yeah, it was an NTO5
Again.
at that point, okay. So I was like, they're ruined anyway. What does it matter? Like literally, they were just tied me over tires till I got a new set of tires anyway. Drove it up there, expected to do some good slides, have a good time, be an idiot. Just hooked. It just hooked. So at that point, I was just making it a competition to see where I could and couldn't go, and I was going where places where F-150s weren't.
That
In a
tire
bone
fell
stock
off through that
NB.
garage door. He had to turn sideways and walk through it like a big buff guy. Like, kick at that door, bro.
You know,
So-
another good snow tire that I had that we're going to talk about next. Okay. It's a 200. A lot of people in this room. This tire is just, it's like a bad dream. It's like the superhero in a bad dream.
You're a bad dream.
That just doesn't do anything, but it's there. And you know you can rely on it, but you can't. Okay.
It's the Robin to your Batman.
It's the RS4!
Like me.
Okay, fair. That is a pretty. I feel like we're gonna have to make sure we don't get too like off topic of that because you can talk about the RS4 for days.
There's a lot of people in here, well, all of us, that know about an RS4.
Yeah.
What it can do to you and what it can do to you.
Yes.
So.
For the 660, I'll give it a 3.5. Again, I talk about value and life of a tire a lot. I will give them massive props on how long they last. And I've seen it firsthand at track days for people that come up and drive in the mountains. And they wouldn't be ran consistently at Grid Life because keep in mind, we have a ton of friends with Fits, but also a ton of friends that run Sunday Cup. There's a reason those guys, they're light cars, the Fits, and the tire doesn't take a ton of abuse. But the way that tire handles abuse, whether it's a front head, because the 8.6 is pretty front heavy, and we both like to scrub speed, and so we both had similar experiences. The way they handle being pushed to the limit, granted there's the tread separation issues, which is why I'm not giving it a 4 like everyone else did. There's the tread separation issues, but the life that they have, the fact that you can daily them, because again, that's a lot of the people that are listening to this are going to daily at 200 usually,
Correct.
when it's way
Well, when we live in the South.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, right, but a lot of
It may be 32 degrees right now, but
right,
maybe
but you
tomorrow it's
can
80.
like for me, for example, like I go shoot up at the Dragon, and so I know I could put a 660 on my car, go up there and be safe, and have the tire last me 2,500 plus miles. Granted, for me, most of my tires don't last more than 4,000, so I know the tire could last a decent amount of time and be consistent, and so I give it a 3.5.
I like it.
And I also really like Pete. So I'll be right back. I gotta go talk to my Bridgestone rep before we talk about RS.
So
What can I tell them?
the RS4 for me always holds a very, very particular spot.
I know it's an emotional tire for you.
It's my rock.
It's got a special
Literally, a rock.
Yeah, literally a rock.
No,
These things do not heat up.
An
at
NTO5 is a
all.
pebble.
oh yeah,
An RS4 is a rock.
A boulder.
a boulder, son.
Boulder.
Okay,
But for a good reason.
like diamond.
Yeah.
Okay, if density is hard. Okay, but no, the RS4 is the tire I recommend to everybody who's just getting into this sport because they're not going to be disappointed with the lifespan compared to their standard tires they've been running. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're going to be a little disappointed because it's not going to last what a 580 lasts.
Yes.
But if you push a 580 hard, it's going to wear.
It's gonna
wear
out.
I'm about to say it's going to wear faster than
Yeah.
an RS4 is
Yeah.
if you drive them the same way. So my point is, it's always the tire I recommend right out the gate because it's going to last them forever. It's not super punishing when they're cold. They do decent in the wet, at least when noon. And when they're warmed a little bit, they get a little worse. in
What
the rain.
about when they're 2 years old and they've been sitting outside for a year?
Then
Okay.
then they're just really fun to slide in. We'll get there. But no, so it's just, in my opinion, out of all the tires on this list, the number one tire I recommend to anybody who's never ran a 200 treadwear or is still very new to it is the RS4 because they're easy to heat cycle. Granted, they take forever
When
too.
they do heat up.
On track, it's not an issue.
On
On track, you can heat cycle them. On the mountain roads, it's pretty hard to heat cycle them.
You asked Zach how they were heating up.
Yeah, but on track you can heat them up. Okay, on track you can heat them up pretty easy. but they last forever.
Yeah,
They,
torch.
I say, you can't overheat them, and they're super easy to learn on, and they're not punishing. They communicate well. Like, in my opinion, they're the best all-around tire we have. All around.
I will agree with you on that they do communicate well. And when you do eventually, after 2 hours of beating the absolute piss out of this tire, get them to heat up, they do work very well. But for me, my personal experience, I want it thin. I want it to be warmed up in a lap and a half.
Right.
It's funny, I can tell you guys are talking about the RS4, like walking in, the way Austin described it, and the way Couch is talking about how long it takes to
He's
heat
like,
up.
No, because, and I'm so adamant about them never warming up because I've drove on them 3 times. Every time I've drove on them, they would not heat up, and I beat the living piss out of those tires.
See,
They require a very specific way to like warm up and heat something
do.
properly. Like, so when I was doing all the track stuff and like doing WRL and everything like that,
Yeah.
everyone ran RS4s
Yeah, and
because
they
it's
are-
an
they are-
8-hour race.
Yes,
Yes.
they are fantastic
Yeah.
for endurance racing, like WRL, Champ Car,
Yeah,
and especially dailying.
and they're great in the wet. Speaking on
Yeah,
daily,
they are really good in the wet. They do
Yeah.
have decent, very well wet traction. But if you are looking for that more of a grip, I would honestly rather have a 615K.
which is because
it is.
I think if
I'll
you're
give you
looking at how hard a compound is and how long it takes to heat up, I think
Yeah.
right below the RS4 being taking so long to heat up, but still maintaining some grip. Because I've always said the RS4 is like 90% of the grip, 100% of the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is super consistent.
Yeah.
That's solid.
Yeah,
I like
and
that.
when they are warmed up, they are extremely consistent, and they're very hard to grease up.
So let's spitball really quick. Okay.
Let's spitball you.
We'll spit. Shut up. We'll spitball this. What about good to the cords? What about when a tire's corded?
Oh, I can speak on that.
I know you.
just let the expert go. He's the expert here.
What do you think is the best
Expert.
tire, like to the cords?
Not a 660.
Definitely not an issue. Okay.
Not a 660.
Yeah.
We'll start with Thomas and we'll just go around.
Okay.
Go
I like
ahead,
that.
Thomas.
So, to the cord, I can't really say to the cord on anything because
It's hard to hide money.
it's hard to
Responsible man.
It's hard for me to run a tire that long and down to the cord because of my experience. My 4+ years of experience in the tire service industry. And we would have people come in every day like, yeah, I wrecked on these. I wrecked the car. Or, just some sob story about wrecking it or ditching the car or whatever, damaging their car or whatever. I'm like, well, they're like, yeah, it was raining. I'm like, well, you're showing cords. You don't have tread. Replace them. I don't have the money for that. But I just bought this $600 pistol. That was your tire money, buddy.
So before you
Five
pop off,
tires.
before you end up grabbing
Before-
said pistol,
Yeah.
what tires do you
Yes,
like to wear?
Before I take off on a rampage about people not taking care of their vehicles and getting off topic, the ones that I have ran closest to the cords, other than the current 660s that are on my NC Miata,
Okay.
71Rs.
Okay.
What about you, Doug?
So for me, I don't have any experience running to cords. I usually run down to where they're bald, and I get rid of them, and they were 71Rs. And when they did, you could tell it was an obvious grip change when they were down to bald. However, I do have a customer that would bring me an autocross car of a 4-cylinder turbo Camaro. I know that sounds ridiculous, but that's what he ran. He had 305 squared on it. BFG G-Force Rivals.
Yeah.
This guy would bring me these tires that were literally bald. Like, you could pretty much see that they were bald. And he would look at me and go, yeah, we still got another track day in that, or another autocross event into that. And I'm like,
Another day,
what?
a whole another autocross day.
And a couple weeks later, I would see his results on his board, and he would be first, second, third in his class. And
Somewhere on podium in his class.
I knew damn well those tires were gone, but they were good even until the cords.
Well, we have them on the list too. I think it'd be good
We
to
do.
talk about those
Yeah.
after the RS1.
Yeah.
What about you?
I've had a 71R many times because I've had probably about 12 sets of 71Rs.
This man went through, I think, how many sets was it? 4 or 5 sets?
It was a lot.
In like
one a month, but
it was
you know,
at least one set a month. Because I know during the pandemic, and I was still not laid off from Firestone yet. I hadn't been laid off from Firestone yet. I mounted at least from the time that they cut my hours.
at least once a month.
From the time they cut my hours to the time they laid us off was roughly a month, maybe 5 weeks. I swear I mounted two sets of 71 Rs.
And you know why? Because they were all on cord.
Yeah, they were.
So for my reason, 71R is pretty decent up to the cord. I mean, obviously you can tell. You could probably see the sparks at night flying from the cord itself hitting the road.
Yeah.
But RS4 to the cord. Because it holds compound for some reason. You could probably turn the tire inside out and it'd be fine.
I do want to circle back to that so we can all, because we didn't do our ratings before we started talking about cords or whatever.
How about you?
See, I actually, much as I literally just praise the RS4, not the RS4. The only reason being is because they're going to heat cycle out before they even get to cords. I don't know a single 200 tread wear that can keep its heat cycle for 2 years.
You're right. You're right.
Sitting out in the weather.
Okay, so I mean they're gonna heat cycle out before you even get to cords, but I mean heck, I heat cycled mine up, gave them to a friend of mine, and he ran them for a while before they got to cords.
So what do you got then?
Say the RE.
Okay.
It's interesting how consistent it is because I'm with Wade. Because of speaking on consistency, again, you were talking about how an RS4 is going to heat cycle out. It will consistently heat cycle out. And along with the heat cycle goes grip, and obviously once you start heat cycling, there goes your compound, thus going to cords. Yeah. But like, it is so hard to tell. You can just drive and drive and drive. And I talk about like dailying, and I talk about value. Sir.
Well, yeah.
And the RS4, I've had 4 sets across different 8.6s and Fiestas and a bunch of cars. And I think that if we're speaking on running the cords and stuff like that,
correct.
I've chunked them because I didn't heat cycle them properly, and they managed that well. I've ran them consistently at track days, ran them to cords, even at WRL. Like, you can run them all the way down. And to where, I mean, granted, you shouldn't in one of those events, but I've seen situations and I've experienced situations where they've gone down almost all the way to cords, pretty much bald, and it's super progressive. It's nothing like a 71R, which I'm trying not to talk about the RS as much as I want to talk about it.
Hold.
But without speaking on the RS4 is one of the most progressive tires that you can take all the way down to the court.
The only caveat I'm going to say, at least for my experience, is again driving a stock power Miata, which means I don't wear out tires. Like, yeah, it's so hard to actually run a tire down to cords on a stock powered Miata. Like, yeah. It's just.
We've seen the way you drive, sir.
So that's the caveat I will have to that, and why I chose the RE71 over the RS4 is because I can actually wear out an RE71 where it's really hard for me to wear out an RS4.
Which is part of why I would give an RS4 like a 4.2. It is one of my favorite tires.
It is. Out of all those tires on the list, it's one of my favorites.
It's not too expensive. It's definitely getting up there if we're talking about price, which is why the NT05 is like the cheap RS4. But I have never had issues with them. Like, I chunked my last set, and it was 100% my fault. I didn't give them time to heat up. I beat the crap out of them. I didn't adjust pressures as often as I should have to set them properly. I either dailied them too low or pushed them when pressures were too high. But when I have chosen to use the RS4 properly, it's been perfect in the wet. I have never had a tire do that well in the wet. Not even the RS. As much as I'm going to praise it, not even the RS, and that's a great wet tire. But super consistent in the wet, and I think that's more important than just outright grip, is consistency. The feedback is incredible. They have a ton of life in them. Like, you couldn't even get them to, go down to cords. They would just heat cycle. And then dry performance is, like I said, 90% of the grip, 100% of the time. And I'll take consistency over outright grip every day of the week.
And that's why a ton of endurance racing teams run an RS4.
Yeah. Was that what you ran?
Yep.
We literally ran, I think, the same set of RS4s until the car went off track and the wheel broke, and then we just put another set of wheels on.
Yeah. Well, that's like,
yeah.
Like WRL, Champ Car, and that's, for a lot of our audience, that dailies, like if you're going to daily a 200,
that's the
I would choose an
RS4.
RS4 all day.
You cannot say or recommend an RS4 very often because of my experience with them. I do not like them. I do not recommend them to anybody unless you are endurance racing or unless you are dailying on a 200 and want to be able to actually use the tire when you want to use the tire.
Right. Which both of those that you spoke on are emphasize the life of the tire more than outright grip, and you prefer outright grip.
Yeah.
Which is why you like a 660 and a
Which is why I like a 660.
Which is what's good about 200 treadwears. You get different variants with
Yeah.
different brands.
Yeah. So
But
so what would you rank it
what for?
for an RS4?
For an RS4?
Yeah.
Well, out of 5, I'm gonna have to put it at probably a 3.8.
It's a good number.
I like it. I think that's fair for it.
Okay.
Mainly because I daily on them. I don't actually use them for performance reasons unless I'm racing or driving someone else's car that's on RS4s.
Fair.
Because my Miata has 245s squared on it and a 15. So RS4 is a very cheap and decent option for it.
Even though that's not what's on the car right now.
No.
No, we're on 660s.
Yeah, he's like, give me the grip.
So what about you?
4.2 on RS4 all day.
4.2.
This man
4.2.
loves them.
Dude, look how long they last.
Again,
True.
I ran them out, gave them to a friend of mine. He mounted them on his Miata, and he ran them for another year.
What about you, Billy? How often do you see them getting mounted? That's what I
RS4s,
wonder.
that's the crazy part, is I don't see RS4s being mounted very often.
Because they last so long.
And
That's right,
and that very well
Fair
could
point.
be.
Yeah.
Out of all the 200 treadwears, I see 660s the most.
Do you have
Out of
experience on RS4s?
everything. I have zero experience on RS4s. Zero. Unfortunately.
Like I said, he's a Bridgestone man.
I am. And unfortunately, I haven't enough gotten into 200 treadwears because since I alternate my cars every week, I don't put enough mileage on my cars, so it's usually by the time I need tires, it's already been 2 years or something.
Man still has a set of 71Rs on his Integra
does.
from 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, I think it's 2.5, maybe even 3 years
Yeah.
ago. So
I have one little question before we get into what he wants to talk about.
No, I still want them to rank the RS4.
Oh, okay. I do have one little side question.
It's like,
What is your favorite tire to mount 200 treadwear wise?
favorite tire to mount.
Yeah,
Definitely not an RS4.
It's
Let's
not
not use that.
or a Falcon.
This
Let's
one's
be
gonna
honest
shock
here.
you. This one's gonna shock you. My least favorite tire to mount on a wheel
A Yoko all day.
no. Oh, I know this.
is a 660.
I can see that. The
RS
sidewalls are so
But
stiff.
a close, sidewalls being so stiff, and when they pop, it's like,
Yeah.
wham! I mean,
Yeah.
it's when they finally go.
Very
it's
light, like 60 psi.
But my second one
Took me 100 PSI.
is
to
the
mount one.
RE71 RS. It is my second.
Don't look at me like
Least-
that.
Is that your say?
Wait, why?
Tell me
Why?
now. Because they
Because you're just mad you
Just-
don't have a set.
will just like
You're gonna have a set next year, buddy.
just like the 660s, they
Yeah.
run wide.
Yeah.
So that's another thing we haven't talked about. They run wide. So if you're looking for a 245, you're gonna get you would probably want to buy a 235 because it's gonna fill out the gap. If you take a stack of 245 RS4s and stack them up against a 245 RE71 RS or a 660, they're visibly taller. It's very obvious. But the thing is because they run so wide, people are trying to mount them on these wheels, and usually it's not a stretch tire or anything like that. It's
Right.
usually like the beads of them actually get stuck in between, and it's like you instead of taking your typical 40 psi to mount a tire,
It's 70.
It's 70. It's 80. I've seen 85. And when they pop, it's like when they give it up, it's not like a 660. They go bam. They just go. They just casually pop, and it's like, where is the earth-shattering kaboom?
Yeah.
It
Now-
took me 100 PSI to mount a set of Falcons one time.
Yeah.
100 PSI, and I'm like, I'm standing away from it, like,
Before
this
we
thing's gonna
sidebar too
go.
far, where would you rank an RS4 based off what you know in comparison to other 200s?
RS4, I'm gonna rank it I like Wade's answer, 3.8.
Yep.
3.8.
3.8. I think I like that number.
For me, my experience with the RS4s and mounting a few sets that I have mounted, I would probably give them 3.4, specifically because
That's fair.
it's slightly lower than the 660, only because it does not have the level of grip that I like from a Super 200 treadwear tire.
Now I want to talk about the one tire before we talk about the God tire.
No, I'm just gonna keep pushing it
You
down
keep
the line.
pushing it.
And it's only because he's so anxious.
So based off everyone's ranking of the RS4 versus the 660, the RS4 outranks the 660 by 0.1 points.
Really?
Wow.
Yep. Yeah.
Damn.
keep track
This
of
man's
everything.
in the bag right here.
Yeah.
I'd like to change my answer to 2.2.
but it's interesting because of how different they are.
Yeah.
And they're only separated by 0.1 points
Yeah,
across wet, dry, sustainability,
Yeah.
communication, life, everything. They're only different by 0.1
So
points.
the tire I'm going to bring up is the Yokohama Advan AO52.
I did want to talk about this. Yeah.
Yeah.
These, in my
Why
opinion,
keep pushing me off?
I got to, man. These, in my opinion, are literally just right below the 71Rs. Now, I don't have any experience with the RSs, so I can't put them above or below. But the AO52 is an incredible tire.
It is.
When you look at it, when you see it brand new, it's like, this has grip. Like, it doesn't look like it should have grip. But the way they grip or how long they last is, like, really, really incredible. And everybody that's came in to me has ranted and raved about them. The last set I ever mounted up were for a female driver. Her name is Amber. She's got a wide body S2000. And she swears by these tires. Now, I think since then she's gone to the RE71RS.
She does have this set of
It's
RSs
so
now.
interesting.
Yeah.
Because
She does have set of
every
RSs now.
so I'm gonna slightly just start plugging the RS a little bit.
They've been doing it the whole time.
Every single instrumented test that I've seen with the new RS versus the 52, because I mean you are right there. You are in the like platinum level spending
They
money
are right
type
there
of
neck and
Yes.
neck.
dude.
Yes.
Well, it's interesting. So the RS is better in every single wet performance test, but the 52 is better in every single dry performance test.
Yeah.
See, that's so wild to me.
And it's interesting because of like after my experience on the RS in the dry in like proper temperature, not even how cold it is right now, but in like 70, 80, 90, 80 degree weather, I could not imagine more grip out of a tire. Because everyone loved the R, and the RS is just like the R, but I don't want to get too into that. But speaking on the 52, I want to rank it. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I want to rank it high just for my hopes. Because after driving on the RS, I cannot imagine more dry grip. And that's what they get praised for so much.
So what number are you going to give it AO52 then?
Based off every single thing I've read, based off the fact that they're banned from grid life, like what Austin mentioned earlier before we even started the podcast, like based off everything I've read, and I want to go back to this clip when I get 52s in the spring, I'm going to give it a 4.8.
Okay.
I'm going to make it, because it sounds like almost the perfect tire. And you talk about them having so much life. I don't want to talk about how many miles I got out of my RSs, but
Let's only focus on the good here.
I value the amount of life out of a tire, obviously, because I go through so many. But they're in the 225 45 17, which is what I run on my car. They are like almost $30 cheaper than an RS. So I've bought the most expensive 200 tread wear tire. So if I can go down in price but up in grip,
That would be worth it.
that's almost a perfect tire, which is why I would give it a 4.8.
Okay.
And it's only minorly worse than the 71RS by like 0.8% worse over all instrumented tests than the 71RS in the wet. So to me, it is just about the perfect 200 tread wear. And I will like sit there and crown it that. I think the AO52 is the perfect 200 tread wear tire.
Shoo. That's a bold statement.
I'll die on that hill, and I haven't even been on that hill very long.
So something that's really cool that, at least from what I was reading on the AO52, is they have actually like a split compound where the inside of the tire is closer to like a 300 tread wear, where you actually get quite a bit of life out of it.
See, that's sick.
But the outside of the tire, when you're actually rolling onto that sidewall, is obviously they say 200 tread wear, but let's be real freaking honest here. It's like 100 tread wear out
The
there.
only reason it's a 200 is because the inside's a 3 and the outside's a 1.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
the RS is like that. It's a split compound in the middle, which I remember. I think I showed you guys all the pictures. I had half an inch just valley in the middle of my RS, and I contacted some people at Bridgestone, and I was like, "Hey, what's going on?" They were like, "It's a split compound." I didn't even know that was a thing.
I had no idea.
But I had this
Honda's
massive,
totally
I had this massive. You can pull a picture up so you can like plug it on, like if this is a real or video, whatever. But yeah, I'm like missing this massive like right in the middle tread.
A rib almost.
Yeah, it's like a valley in the middle, and they were like, yeah, it's split compound, and sure enough, it evened out over time.
So I've got something I just found out. I literally just looked this up. Yokohama's got another tire now.
The
Yeah,
8009?
Yeah.
8009.
Yeah, because it's the new 8008.
Yeah, it's they I guess they're calling it, and it is $2 more a tire than the AO52s. $2.
I bet they do that
In my
because they've watched how successful Falcon's been with the split 200. I bet they're going to do the exact same. I bet you the 8009 is like a 615, and the AO52 is like a 660.
See, this makes me question. This was my second choice. Was I was going to get an AO52 or an RS. I hadn't decided.
Yeah.
But now I'm seeing the 8009s, and they look more aggressive than the AO52. So I'm like,
so before we,
what
we're in Yokohama land, what would you rank a 52? Based off what you know, and do you have experience with the tire? Because I don't.
Very, very minimal. I've driven some customer cars on just test drives to make sure I fix their crap right. And at least from the road noise I felt and what very little driving around I did, and obviously the research I've done.
Yeah.
And again, banned from grid life. I mean, that says something. You know what I mean?
Good.
Yeah, I mean, if they ban it from grid life, you're like, all right, why? Like, you have to do your research into why. There's a reason for it. Sure enough, I think I'm going to give the same a 4.8. And that's hard for me to put anything over a RS4 and a 660.
So I think that's pretty interesting because myself, I don't have any knowledge on the tire other than the fact that it was in my cart multiple times. But I was like, probably shouldn't buy these tires this check. Might want to wait because they are a bit pricey, right?
They're a little pricey, yeah.
So why would I spend the extra money when I could just be like, I'll just affirm 660s or something like that.
Yeah.
I just had this revelation recently with the RS after driving on it. I think the extra money's worth it because I got more life. You were talking about life on the 52s. I got more life out of this tire under hard driving and daily driving than I would have gotten out of a cheaper tire. So I think the money you pay for consistent performance over an extended period of time.
Correct.
You're almost paying to have extra tire.
Yes, you are.
So I think that's where the price is justified. It's not like, oh, this costs $300 more a set because it's better. Well, it's better because it'll last longer. It's going to be more consistent. It'll heat cycle when you need it to because you can heat it up in 3 turns around road or 2 turns around Road Atlanta, not even a full lap, and 3 turns up at the Dragon or up in the mountains or whatever.
Chucking into turn 1 real hefty, and she's good.
Yeah, but that was one thing, like you were speaking on price, that's the one thing that I always thought like the high price 200s were stupid, and the RS changed my mind on that because of how long they lasted for me. So I want to think about that. But what would you rate?
That, and that's a good point.
Yeah, what's your rating?
And like Doug was saying, when you look at the AO52, you're like, this is a 200 treadwear tire? This looks like an all-season. What is going on?
Crap.
But, for someone that's never ran the tire or even physically seen one in person, and this is going to be rare that I give this.
You can't say you haven't seen one because Forrest had them on his S2000.
I never got to see the S2000 in its prime, though.
He also had the A052s on the TS.
So I'm going to rate it.
Never seen them.
I'm going to rate it a 4.5.
4.5, that's...
Man, we're hyping these up.
We are hyping these up, and none of us have any experience.
I'm going to rate it.
Absolutely.
I want you to bring this clip of us rating this back up in the spring when I get 52s.
How about junk, garbage,
TO5. Give me my TO5.
I would say refund.
As for me, only because of price point, because I just looked them up while we were talking, and it was for the RSs it was $315 a tire. But for the AO52, it was $358 a tire. That's $40+ a tire more. I can't justify spending $160 more for a set of tires. So just for that base reason alone, 4.2 for me.
So even though the price is kind of a deterrent, if it costs the same as an RS, what would you rank it? Just in theory.
4.7.
So half a point for price. That's
half
fair.
A point only for price.
Mm-hmm.
Only based on price.
That's
Nothing else but price. Now again, I talked about anybody who's ran them. I literally only know 2 people who ran them, and both of them have S2000s.
It's so weird
And they have both
that it's ranked so high and we have so little experience. but I think it's the price that's kept us away.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
it's 100% the price that's kept
For
me
every
away
other
from it.
option that we had.
Yeah.
But like for me, the whole reason I'm getting him is like I've spent the money on an RS now, and it's like, okay, I want to see what literally the best tire, the best 200 acts like.
Yeah.
What do you think, Coach? Do you have experience with
I
them?
do not have any experience mounting them in the tire service industry or even driving on them at all, not even around a parking lot. The only experience I've had with them is literally just looking at reviews.
Actually, how was mounting them?
Mounting them is actually not that bad.
No.
They are kind of a stiffer sidewall, not quite like the 660, but it's like they don't run really wide like the 660s or the 71 RS.
They're very true to size.
Yeah, they're very true to size. So like I can see people running. If you run a 265, you can get away with a 275 or something of the sort and kind of stretch out. But if you're on a 660 or 71,
That's something that's real crucial for me. So so I drive, for anyone that's listening that doesn't know, I have a 2022 GR86, and the fitment is worse on the second gen than the first gen because of the rear tab in the back that they added. And so I have to be super careful with tire sizing because I want to run a 255/40, and if it runs wide like a 660, it will hit my fender liner in the rear and cut a hole in the sidewall of my tire.
Yeah.
So I need something that's true to size, that's consistent, which is part of why I want to move towards that, because I know if I'm getting a 255, it is a 255. It's not going to be 255.5.
Yeah, it's not going to be like a 265 like the 71R was.
Well, the RS runs wide too.
Yeah, the RS runs wide too.
And I can attest to that because out of all the 225s I've had on my car already, the RS was decently
It's still a
wide.
lot wider, yeah.
So based on what you know, what would you rank?
Based on
52?
what I know, I would give it a 4.4. Specific. Now, if theoretically if it was the same price as an RS, or even the R was when the 71R was still available, 2 years ago.
what are we talking about? We got like half off. We were
Yeah.
Firestone.
Yeah. It would probably be closer to a 4.7 or maybe even a 4.8.
Wow.
Man, all I'm saying is next year we all be on.
We
We all need to be on AO52s, otherwise we're getting called out. We are all gonna get called out if we're not all on AO52s next year.
I will say this. I have said from the very beginning, since Bridgestone announced the 71 RS was coming to the United States, that I was going to try them, and I am going to try them.
Oh, I had a set I could give you.
Sir, those
Oh,
are
God.
slicks. I have seen those tires.
Man, so it is significantly. I like how every tire we've talked about, it goes up in
It goes
rank.
up in price.
Yeah.
Which I know we're kind of like, how many more tires are we doing? Because we're pushing it for time. Because we can talk.
Yeah, I
about
was about to
tires
say
for-
we're getting
Well, we're
close to
gonna-
time.
Yeah, we are.
end on the RS?
Let's
Yeah,
end
we're
on
gonna end on
RS.
the RS.
And
So
let's-
let's-
Is that the next one we're
push it
talking
next.
about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to transition over to the RE71 RS, which is our benchmark tire, what we're going to rate.
Actually, guys, we just ran out of time. Let's go ahead.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah. Next time.
Why?
But,
I want to be the last person to talk on this.
okay, and I really want to hear your opinion on it because out of anyone here,
Last.
you were like,
yeah, you have experience.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
you're the only
you've
one
taken
that
your
has
wheels
has
off and brought
experience.
them to bed with you. But,
Yeah.
Big spoon.
there's a lot of other different 200 tread words that we could have talked about tonight, and I would love to fit all those in here.
Max's
Autocross
VR
tires are
ones.
like the BF Good Wrench tires and everything like that.
Yeah.
But
Hey, we touched on the rival a little bit.
we did touch on the rivals. The VR ones.
Yep.
I'm not really going to talk about the Coopers at all because I don't have any experience
Yeah,
on them.
neither-
I don't
I
know.
don't
Has
know.
anyone ran a Cooper?
I don't-
Yeah.
I
Is
don't
someone
know.
out there ran a Cooper?
I did not a set of
The-
Reza Z3s though.
The
And-
only experience I have on any Cooper tire is a Cooper Cobra Radial GT, and that was on my 1990 Toyota pickup.
That sounds like a
Okay.
1992.
Cooper Cobras or something.
He said that came with the truck in 1990.
Yeah.
I think if you have a
They
VR1
came
in your
on
car,
the aluminum centerline wheels.
yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, perfect truck tire. But if you have a VR1 in your car, right, you
The
probably
VR1
like,
wheel.
yeah, I'm gonna buy this tire, 200, and then you look over to your left and you see this all slick IMSA style tire. You're like, RC1, I'm gonna buy an RC1.
Yeah.
That's a different story.
Yeah, you just go RC1 at that point.
But
At that point, just buy.
So I
Buy
want
me
to
something.
hear you guys talk about the R and what you know about the RS. Like aside from what I've said.
okay, so for the RS, for me, I don't know too much about it other than it being a main AO52 competitor. Okay, and it being the revival for the RE71R.
Which we all
So
Yes.
what I'm going to say about this tire I've had a little bit of experience with your car, thankfully. I appreciate that. Is I'm going to demand traction very fast. Okay.
Just like we did with the RA71R.
Correct. That's what I want. I want good life. I want good steering feedback, and I want it to make the car extremely and significantly faster compared to a lot of other treadwear options.
When you say
even in the same category.
When you say faster, like all of the articles and stuff that I've read from Japan and things from Bridgestone and people that have done the test on them and have tested the A052s and the RSs and even the Rs when they were still around before they were discontinued, and they looked at the 71R versus the 71RS, the RS was a half second faster.
Dude, and like all the instrumented testing. Because
Yes.
I've obviously, like, I've looked at all the stuff. It is like crazy. Like around Tsukuba on an S2000 with 17 by 8.5s, it was like 1.3 seconds faster.
That's insane.
So I'm going to go ahead and just put my opinion really quick on the RS because I want to hear yours about it. So the RS for me, I'm not ran one yet. I've just drove. Okay,
Based on what you know about so when everyone ranks these, I want to know like the ranking based off your experience with the R plus what you know about the RS.
Okay, so
I feel like that would be the most consistent.
I'm still going to rate it a 5.
Oh my goodness!
Yes,
based because of what your experience on the R71R.
Yes.
Wow.
I'm going to rate it a 5, and after driving your car, I can see that.
He's like, it's a 2. Man,
Give me my NTO5s back.
A 5. It's going to be a 5. So I'm going to go ahead and let you guys talk about it.
My experience with the R, I don't have any experience with the RS.
Right.
Yet. Until next year after everything gets done with my car and everything, which is a whole other topic that I'm not getting into. My experience with the R was the R did exactly what I wanted it to when I wanted it to, even when it was cold. So the 71R to me is a 5.
Man, 2 in a row.
The 71R to me was a 5. The RS, I hope it is a 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Solid.
I'll probably agree with Couch on that. The R was a 5 for me as well.
Oh my God.
I was obsessed with those when I had them on my Miata, and I had 2 different sets, and they I mean, after a run on the Dragon, you can get out of the car and turn around and look at the bumper, and it's caked in little black speckles of where you've just been ripping it with these tires.
And you can do it like 10 times in a row.
You could, and they would literally be like, "Yep, no problem, I'll take care of it." Based upon I've mounted them up, and then people talking about them and stuff like that.
We've mounted so many of them.
The 71R, I'm going to give them a 5 for sure. My hopes for an RS, I hope to be a 5.2 or something like that, because it's impossible to get past 5. But I hope that the RS will be a 5. For now, I can only give it a 4.8 because I don't have any experience of it, and that's it. That's the only reason why I can give it a 4.8.
And not a 5.
And not a 5.
Fair enough.
I'm sorry, guys.
I know,
You're going to drag this man.
I'm not going to drag.
He starts
Out of
putting
his
on
garage.
NTO5 apparel.
Yeah.
we know who
He's
you are.
now sponsored. This man is now sponsored by Nitto.
So,
This is based off your experience with the R
yes.
and what you know about the RS.
So, at least for the R, like I have very little with RS, very, very little. But with the R, it's not a 5. Sorry, guys. It's going to be like a solid 4.2.
I'm going to drag you out of this garage right now.
4.2.
Do you own a Camaro? No, I'm just kidding.
Every Camaro
Do
is
you-
unsubscribed.
Sir, do you own a Mustang with NTO5?
Is your car too
Everyone,
heavy
everyone
for a
thinks my
tire?
car's a Mustang.
now, why do you rate it so? Why do you
Well-
rate it 4? Because you're pretty consistent about the whole 3.8 to 4.2
Yeah.
range.
Yeah.
So it seems on the higher end of tires for you. Why do you rate it where you rate it?
The grip is great. I love the grip. The life was good. The communication was fantastic.
You're
I'm
fantastic.
wondering. What do you? The consistency?
I can only do a one good lap. If I do one 10/10 lap,
Dude,
I have to go back in. I have to pit in.
All the autocross people are clinging to Austin because most of what you talk about is I need a tire that lasts
A one-lap hero. A one-lap hero.
Well, yeah, because you're
That's what
talking
it
about
is.
this tire's great for one lap. All the autocross guys are like, yeah, this tire, yeah, this one.
Yeah.
But again, I'm the kind of guy who who tries to sneak into as many sessions as he can on track. Like, if they let me out there on track for an hour straight, I'm going to try to push.
He's going to blow his car. He's going to try to blow his car.
My car won't blow up. My car will not blow up.
But you can't even go an hour on the R, which is why you give it a 4.2.
Exactly. If I do a 7/10, I could do a whole session. But if I do a 1/10 lap where I'm really pushing to break my track record, I have to pit. I have to do a cool down lap and pit because it just won't hold up anything past that.
So what was your rating?
A 4.2 because for that very reason.
Okay.
Plus what you know about the RS.
So with the RS, what research I've done, they seem to have ironed a lot of that out. From what research I've done, what talking to this guy's done, which he's going to talk about in a second, but also watching him drive that car and riding with him a little bit and everything else, they seem to have ironed a lot of my beef with that out. So my speculation is that it's going to be a 5 with the RS.
So based off that and your experience with the R, where do you rate it?
The RS?
Yeah, because that's what we're doing.
Yeah, my speculation is going to be a 5.
But what do you rate that? So what everyone's giving, like that. That's what I'm saying is experience with the R plus what you currently have with the R.
Oh, it's combined?
Yeah. What do you rate it based off that?
Ooh.
It's going to say like
it's gonna be 4.6 or a 4.7, like me in the middle.
Okay, I'll give it a 4.6 then.
Yeah.
All right, let's hear your grand finale there, Dylan. Come on now.
It's no NT05. It is so. So
we're not getting
It's
any,
certainly
we're not
not
getting any
an
sponsors.
NT05.
Okay, so I'll preface this. For anyone that doesn't know, I bought RE71 RSs in a 225/45/17, and they survived 3,220 miles of street plus mountain driving. That is me being a photographer up at Tail of the Dragon, going up there 4+ days a week, and I don't drive super slow all the time.
He does the speed limit very aggressively.
Aggressive.
I will say, based off my first
It's
off
a very fast 30 mile per hour turn.
I want to talk about the 71R because I have a ton of experience with that, and that was my biggest gripe with the car or with the tire was that, dude, it would not last. Give me a full lap around Road Atlanta and I am greasy exiting 7.
Yeah, 100%.
Like that is where the tire would just fall off. I will never forget when I recently drove with Wade up in the mountains and I was following this car and I was on my RSs that were pretty much brand new, and I know about across that road where a tire starts to fall off, and I put myself in kind of a pickle because I expected the car to grease, understeer, scrub, and then hook. And it just gripped. And I was blown away. And so I was able to do that. And the thing is, I could do that consistently. We did that, and then we turned around and did half a run, and then a full run, and the car never lost grip. And part of all the research that we've all done, and that when I was reading about the tire before I bought it, because I had to make it make sense to me before I bought it. That's what I try to do with most things. But reading about all the testing at Tsukuba and at Suzuka and all these other circuits, I was blown away with how many laps they could get out. Because it wasn't, oh, we beat the 71R by 1.3 seconds this one hot lap. It was like over the course of 10 laps, it was like 15 seconds. Because the R can't even do 10 laps. And so you would watch this, and so I was blown away by that. And then when I was researching to pick the RS or the 52, I knew we were getting into winter, and so that means obviously a little bit more rain. I will say, if you want good performance and you live in an area that might get rain every now and then, you are absolutely fine by driving an R71 RS, and it is, I mean, marginally behind an RS4 in terms of wet grip all day.
I would agree.
I was blown. Yeah, because you drove it in the wet.
Yeah.
It is insane the amount of grip that you get from an RS in the wet. And on every instrumented test that's been done against an AO52, it outperforms in the wet. But I didn't know it was going to perform as well as it did. That was the big thing for me. And there's one of the parkways up here, Foothills Parkway, has just recently been repaved. And I was able to drive on that in a downpour when it's 55 degrees outside, and I felt comfortable and safe in my car. And that was 3 days before I brought it to you to get tires changed.
And they were gone.
And I felt so safe in that car. I drove on the rain or in the rain on the Dragon. Not hard.
Exactly the speed limit, right?
But, well, I didn't drive hard. Obviously, I do know the limit of a tire and I know the limit of a road and how to drive safely. within the bounds of the road and the tire in the car. But I was just consistently surprised. And speaking on consistency, that was something else that blew me away, is that like you drove on the tire, I've driven on it, and in the wet, in the cold, in the dry, the tire's super consistent. It doesn't just like snap and lose grip, which actually is one of the faults of the RS4 under hard driving, is that it would just let go.
Yeah, eventually, but usually heavier cars.
I've never been on a super expensive 200 just because I've never really been able to justify the price, and thankfully I'm at a point to where I can
Now he's
justify
gonna
the
buy
price.
a 052.
I give the RS a 4.8 because I want to rank it exactly where I ranked the 52 for now, based off everything I know.
That's safe. I like
Yeah.
it.
And how hyped I am about the 52. I'm going to rank it the exact same. I just props to Bridgestone for creating a tire that is consistent, which is something that you like to have in your arsenal, because you want a tire that you can take out for a 20-minute session.
I want a tire as reliable as my car.
Yeah, for a 300,000 mile Miata
Yes.
that's still
For
running.
almost 300,000 miles.
But
I've been trying to blow up for
I
3 years.
could take an RS to a track day at Road Atlanta, and I know for a fact I could drive down there, do my track day, drive home in the rain, and be fine. It's not going to be perfect. No 200 treadwear tire is going to be perfect.
No, nothing is.
But I think it's a 4.8, and I mean, I am struggling to really not rank it a 5. I'm doing it just out of morals.
I know. I was just like 5.
Fuck, yeah, I was too.
I
I was like, give me that Bridgestone sponsor, boy.
it is. I really want to make it a 5, but I don't want to call it perfect. I just, because I feel like it's going to have flaws versus the 52. I feel like I'm going to drive the 52, and it's going to be better in the dry than the RS, but then I'm going to drive it in the wet, and who knows. So I'm leaving that margin of error, the 0.2 on the AO52 for not performing in the wet, and the 0.2 on the RS because it might get outperformed by the 52 in the dry. But I will say, of tires that are available right now, for those of the people out there that could justify the price and that daily their cars, I would not recommend a tire quicker than an RS. For a car that you can drive around on, go beat on in the mountains, even right now with the weather the way it is, because it's like probably 38, 40 degrees in this garage.
Yeah, freeze my ass off.
Yeah.
Like I had my car at your place, 2-3 days ago, and I still would have driven those tires up to the Dragon, up on a mountain road, finished them off at a track day.
And Doug's like, no.
Doug's like, please don't.
Just look
Doug
at
is like, those tires were slicks, buddy.
Speaking on the logical sense, absolutely not. But speaking on how confident I was in the tire and how long it lasted me, up until it went to your shop to get fixed, it's like I'm so quick to recommend them. That's the most a 200 has ever lasted me on the mountain since I've lived up here. Being on all the amount of tires that I've been on, that is the longest a 200 treadwear has ever lasted me, and that's also the hardest I've driven on a 200, which really blows me away. Did not expect it to last more than 3,000 miles.
I have 2 points to make.
Okay.
So there is one properly bad downside to the new RSs,
Other than price?
other than price, and that's availability.
Yeah.
It's true.
They
Really?
they don't even make
Yes.
them in my size.
Oh,
A 225,
Yeah, they don't make them in
455, 15
225,
is like
yeah.
one of the most common sizes. They don't make them for an RS in it.
Yeah.
That is true.
Now, I have talked to somebody that works for Bridgestone.
Same person? I'm
Same
assuming?
person.
Okay.
Yeah. Good old Asano. So, that's it. There should be a new compound that's in development right now,
Yep.
because they do everything in cycles.
Yeah.
Now, the RS has already been out for 2 years in Japan before it came to us.
Yeah.
So they don't feel the need to bring out any more molds for those tires because
Yeah.
it's just not profitable. Which is, from a business point, you got to
From the
understand.
standpoint of
Yeah,
business perspective,
yeah, you have to
it's
understand
not
that.
profitable.
So not really shitting on them for that. That being said, the new tires have been, he's told me, he's like, they should be in like our
Standard
our
New
triple
York
eight
size.
level of availability.
Yeah.
Where they make them in the most obscure sizes possible.
Yeah.
I like
That-
that.
they-
That's good.
He did speak on, the same guy spoke on when I lost that rib in my tread and how it's a dual compound and it had to even out. He spoke on that as well, about that new mold being like a little bit of a fix for it.
Yeah, so that's we're a little ways out from that, so
Yeah.
But for right now, the people that can get the RS, I think absolutely should.
Absolutely.
And
If you can afford to get the RS,
I think you absolutely should.
you should go
It's
for it.
going to
Definitely.
be great in every comparison that you or any type of driving that you experience.
Yeah.
Other than like obviously hard snow, you shouldn't be getting a 200 anyway. Go buy a winter tire. And
Or just don't drive the
Speak
car.
for yourself.
yeah, or just turn around and run
Austin
backwards.
says I have 3-year-old 71Rs
So
mounted backwards.
Dude, they did great. I don't know what you're talking about.
So based off everyone's ranking, so the RS is better than the AO52 by like 1.5 points on an overall scale.
And that was going to bring me up to the point, these tires that we've talked about tonight. Let's just go ahead and do a quick ranking, just like fly through this real quick. Number 1 is obviously going to be.
I have the numbers right here.
Yeah.
Oh, man's got
Yeah,
got
he's been
statistics.
So ranking from the bottom up. So we talked about 6 tires. Right?
Okay.
We talked about the NTO5, 595, 660, RS4, AO52, and then the 71 RS. So at the bottom of the list, as much as it breaks my heart, is the NTO5. Obviously, it's
Trash.
not great. It's not a great tire. It's affordable for some people. It might be a good entry level for people that might want to experience some parts of a 200. But it is at the bottom of our list for.
I like 300 treadwear's better than that.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about 200, so we have to rank it based on 200.
I know,
So,
I'm just saying.
so across all of us ranking, it got a 9.6 out of a potential 25. So obviously not that great. Followed actually really closely by the 595 in 5th. That got an 11.1. And it's
Maybe
Federal boys are proud.
Hell
in the
yeah,
it's
bro.
like we got above a 10.
We got above an NTO5.
Yeah, we're better than something for once.
Yeah.
And so in 3rd and 4th, or sorry, I guess technically, 4th and then 3rd would be 4th being the 660 and then 3rd being the RS4, obviously only separated by 0.1 points. And I think
How much?
Point
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 Yeah.
one.
the 660 was a 19.3 out of a 25, and then the RS4 was a 19.4.
I think it's because of different opinions about each tire.
But I think that's
They're
good.
totally different 200 treadwears.
Yeah,
Because
they
for
are.
everyone listening to this, if you're undecided and you need a middle ground because you don't want to spend the money on a 52
The
or an
RS4 is a
RS,
fantastic middle ground.
well, they both are. Because if you
They
want
both are.
grip, if you're more grip focused, go get a 660. If you want a daily
Life
level 200,
focused.
go get an RS4. And this, we didn't even plan on this, but it's perfect because it lands right in the middle. And it's exactly where people can split their decision.
Yeah.
Of I want a grip tire, I'm gonna go get a 660. I want more life. A 660 has life, but I want more life, and I'm gonna daily this thing. And I can only afford to buy 200 treadwears once every 6-8 months, 2 years, whatever.
Once a year or something.
Yeah, the fact that they're separated by 0.1 points, and we're talking about 200 treadwears, and there's such a different tire, gives everyone listening to this the perfect 2 options. I feel like.
And I think that's fantastic. It really
Yeah.
is.
The fact that we landed on that.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah,
I like
that's
that.
cool.
And we
Yeah.
did bring up the points. We were talking about the same thing that he just mentioned. And, a lot of people, they don't have access to trailers. So when they go to a track day or just go to an event, they have to drive on the tire that they're presented with unless they have spares and they can switch. But
Yeah.
more than likely, they're going to drive on that specific
Drive
tire.
in, drive back.
Me personally, with my experience with driving to the track for the past, 2 years, I drove down on an 8500 for my first track day.
Yeah.
It did okay, but it was my first track day. And then I went to an RE the next year. Drove down on one set of REs to 3 events last year, and they did fantastic.
Yeah.
I went through my second set of REs. I got those when I left Firestone, and I did the same thing. They did fantastic. And the 660s this year that I got in March, driving down to Red Atlanta and AMP, they did great. Driving down on track in the rain, not in the rain, coming back, a little bit of rain, no rain, a little bit of rain, whatever, they did great. But I feel like an RS4 is going to have better wet traction.
And I do too.
Which is why they're separated by that little
Yeah.
amount.
That
because-
point.
That point
One
one.
fraction.
But that lands on, for everyone listening and even for us, if it's the middle of summer and you're going to be wanting, okay, it's going to be dry weather and I'm going to be doing this many track days, I want outright grip.
NTO5.
You can get your 660 and be happy with it,
Yeah.
and for the inclement weather, or if you daily, or if you even have 2 sets of tires, if for some reason you always want to be on a 200, you can daily your RS4s and then go to the
And
track
then
on
swap
660s.
to the 660s at the track.
Or even if you have your RS4s, going, potentially on a mountain cruise, okay, I'm going to hang out in the back and I'm going to let these warm up, because I don't want to push them because they can't handle that.
Yeah.
But you can still drive it. At the end of the day, an RS4 is still a 200. It can still, perform well under given circumstances. That's why it ranks so well in testing. Right behind a 52 in an RS,
Yeah.
which that's our second and first place. First place being, obviously, not everyone in this group has a ton of experience on the RS, and even I only have 3,000 miles. But granted, it's 3,000 very hard miles on an RS, but I want to see us all rank the 52 after we test it. So the 52 out of 25 potential points got a 22.7, and the RS got a 24.2 out of 25, which is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
I
We
left
are
them,
biased.
well, I left them both at 4.8s for the reason being the margin of error, because they're both pretty much perfect. I wonder if the split between the 52 and the RS is like the 660 and the RS4, but just the absolute best you can get before you start really pushing the limits of what you can drive on the street.
Yeah.
But
And just so everybody's aware, our 888Rs aren't as good as they play off.
SEMA tire,
Take
baby.
them to
I
SEMA,
always
sorry,
call it
yeah.
SEMA tire.
If
If
30
anyone,
second rank, go.
if anyone listening to this
Number one.
is on an R888R, I'm almost willing to offer to buy them a set of NTO5s.
Yeah.
Because they're
Seriously.
gonna be better.
Yeah.
To me, there is no reason to run an R888R unless you are sponsored by Toyo, or you want to, or
How
or
old
you
are
want
they
to
now?
look pretty.
Like 12?
All right.
12 years or something?
but it's just they've never been significant in performance. They rank at the bottom of like every 200 treadwear tire test.
And it's 100. They're rated at 100.
They're 100 treadwear.
Oh, 100.
Yes.
Yeah, they're rated at 100.
Yeah, the R888R
Yeah, the
is
R888 's
a
100, yeah.
100 treadwear tire.
Wow, what are
Yeah.
those $90 Falcons I just put on? I bet you they outgrip an R888. Oh my goodness.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and just talk some mad shit real quick. I'm willing to bet anybody on an R888 has been to more car shows this past year than they have done actual driving.
And let's qualify
Said it,
actual.
blast me, let's go.
let's qualify
C underscore
actual
javelin,
driving.
blast the shit out of me.
Let's qualify actual driving as a sanctioned event, because some car show guys could be like, bro, we did the Dragon on the way to Gatlinburg, on the way to Slam Enough Gatlinburg, we did the Dragon. That's driving, and not to demean anybody with a stance
Yeah.
car, but let's talk about with hard driving being sanctioned events, SCCA, NASA, HPDE events, autocross, whatever. Yeah, I'm willing to do the same thing.
Yeah. I mean,
Anybody on our
not that there's
AAA
anything wrong with car shows either. I'm just saying it's not a driver's tire.
If I see an R888, I want to know if I can stand on your splitter.
I like that.
Yeah.
My splitter is rotting,
And I can stand
and I
it.
can still stand on it.
But we can't take it to SEMA, though.
We can't take a seat.
I can't
No,
take it
unless
to,
Johnny
because
gets
it,
us in.
because it
But-
doesn't have
Hey.
R888Rs on it. So I
Hey,
can't
do you have a
take it to
Bluetooth drive shaft?
Huh?
Do you have a Bluetooth drive shaft?
Plenty
So
I have
of
before we
Bluetooth
end up
bearings.
shit talking SEMA for a whole
I
hour,
have Bluetooth bearings. What are you talking about?
do you guys agree with the way that we ended up ranking the tires?
Yeah,
That's what I want to
Yeah.
know, because I feel like that fell in, first all the way down to sixth. You have 71 RS, 52, RS4 660. I feel like those four are pretty. I mean, that's hard to beat that list. I mean,
I think
Yeah.
it's a very confident and
yeah.
inspiring list, too, because not only do we have a lot of people that watch this series and hopefully watch it in the future that are track people, but a lot of you guys hit the mountain pass. You just go for spirited drives, and you want to have a tire that not only can give you good feedback and everything like that, but main priority is safety. And
You, want
you
to be able
definitely want to put
daily-
confidence in your tire.
Yeah. you
So
wanna be able
I
to-
agree with the ranking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I will definitely say if anyone is even remotely considering an RS, you should definitely get it.
Yeah.
I drove on that tire recently when the tires were towards the end of their life in the wet and in the freezing cold and in cold wet weather, and I felt extremely safe. I didn't feel like the car was going to understeer. I didn't feel like it was going to oversteer away from me. So if anyone is remotely considering them, I can definitely speak on the amount of life that they had and that they kind of took from the beating that I gave them. So the amount of life that they give the driver under harsh conditions, whether that be weather, heat, hard driving, regular daily driving, because I dailied on them.
Mm-hmm.
They were my only tire. It's not like I swapped tires and then went up to the mountain or went to the track or whatever. If anyone's even remotely considering them, I would highly recommend getting them. It's everything that everyone loved about the R now fixed. All the problems that everyone had with the R is fixing the RS. I haven't had any issues. I love them.
I agree.
Well, cool, man. This has been fun.
I think
It has been
that's a good way to wrap it up.
Very informative.
It's great.
It's
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah.
I think we all got
What's
to express
our-
opinions.
What's our next episode? Are we gonna leave it as a?
We'll leave it as a
We're gonna leave
surprise.
it open ended.
Yeah, we gotta leave it as a surprise.
We'll leave it as
you
a
gotta keep them
surprise.
coming.
You
You
back.
got,
I mean, this is only our first time. so-
except for the
Maybe-
NTO5.
maybe we did
guys,
scare
I'm
'em
sorry.
off. Right.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We may have scared you off. It's okay.
Anyone with
come
an NTL5, you can come talk to me. I'll be
Come
your
on.
friend.
Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
I
don't
promise.
hate you as a person.
We'll
we
watch you
promise.
slide. We'll watch
We
you.
might give you a single toe touching. Just a single.
But anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're listening on Spotify, on our new channel, or if you're on YouTube checking it out, thank you guys so much for the shares leading up to this podcast. Thank you for taking the time to listen to it. And most importantly, thank you for all the support and the continuous love. So we're going to end it with this. Guys, thank you again. And as always, keep hitting the pass. We'll see you
Same
next time.
way, too.